More Got Hockey coming at you. And today, welcoming a guest I've had on the list for a little while. I was able to reach out and nab him for this one. I've already had the face of the franchise, so to speak. So today, I'm welcoming the brains behind InGoal. I've got Dave Hutchison today. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining me today. And how are you?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Kevin calls me the brains. I don't know. That's pretty scary to have that pressure put on me, but he is definitely the face of the
I
franchise.
I will leave that between the two of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously, very important to have you on to talk a little bit about what you do at InGoal and what you do for the greater goaltending world, I suppose. But I want to focus today mostly on your other job, which is Matthew's dad. You're
Sure.
a
Yeah.
goalie father, and what was it like, and how did you figure out at what point or at what time did you realize I have a goalie on my hands?
Um, Probably right away. Honestly, he's just one of those kids that anything athletic comes relatively easy for him. He just feels comfortable. I can remember him quite literally hitting regulation golf balls with regulation clubs when he was still in diapers in the backyard. Going camping, having to take a net with us camping so that he could hit balls into the net. Yeah, just one of those kids that loves everything athletic. He definitely enjoyed playing out as much as being a goaltender, and it was a tough day when he was forced to make the choice, and it was his choice. Definitely he's surrounded with so many things goaltending. I think he was primed to make that decision. But as I've said to him many times over, if you could quit tomorrow, you could change to being a player tomorrow. It really doesn't matter. Just love you for who you are, and as long as you have something in your life that you like to work hard at, then I'm going to be a happy guy.
Yeah, I mean, what else can we do as parents, right? Than to sort of just be there for the support. So how old was he when he did become full time?
Well, let's see, five, six, I guess 8 or 9,
Okay,
probably 8 at the beginning of the season,
so
which is your
pretty
first
standard
year of,
stuff.
yeah, your first year of sort of rep stuff. I think they call it development around here in BC.
Hmm.
But you're unfortunately forced to make a decision then, and I think that's wrong, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
you'd like them. Well, certainly, I think the freedom, of course, is always the thing from a just from an overall development standpoint. Like as far as like broadly for goalies, you'd think you'd like to see them go a little longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, just for them, because if they enjoy both, why not do both?
Of course.
That's the primary reason. It stinks having two goaltenders and one guy has to sit on the bench and watch half the time. That just doesn't make any sense to me either. So why not alternate if you can? And I'm not saying when you hit those higher levels of hockey that every kid's going to have the skill to do both. And I don't know that what
Hmm.
my son would have. But if you don't, I would love to see hockey because if we talk about there being I think it's a little dramatic to say a crisis in goaltending in Canada, but we're always looking for more goaltenders, always looking to develop more goaltenders. Why not create more opportunities so that if that kid maybe is good enough to be, say, a goaltender at the rep level, but would like to still be a player, why not let him register on like a recreational house league team as a forward? You can't do
Hmm.
that here, at least. You're just not allowed. You can only be rostered on one team. When we were trying to support the growth of the women's game, girls were allowed to play on a boys' team and a girls' team at the same
Hmm.
time. And I'm all for that. I think it's awesome. Maybe do something like that with goaltenders. And it could work both ways. Maybe you've got a really great forward who wants to try being a goalie a little bit. Let them do both. And it would be hard with schedules and
Of
everything. I'm not
course.
saying there's an easy, but let's explore ways that kids can do more. It's good for them athletically and just for the enjoyment of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there probably would need to be a few layers of rules in there as well, because unfortunately, you'd
It's hockey.
probably
We
end
do
up
that,
with
don't we?
yeah. Yes, I mean sometimes there are a few too many, and sometimes I think there are some that of course are necessary. I know when you look at some of the developments that have I'm not sure what it's like out on the West Coast, but here we're seeing springing up these child leagues where it's sort of the pre-rep ages where now with Hockey Canada we're all playing half ice and we're playing without as much structure, and there are now leagues popping up that are going back to that where they're outside of the umbrella of Hockey Canada. And I can see, I think what I see the attractiveness is that is the choice where some parents and coaches or whoever it may be, they decide that they want their kid playing the full game, the structured game. And whether or not that's a good idea, it's what they want.
Yeah, that's a debate we could get into, and probably one that I don't
It's a whole
understand.
nother, that is,
And
it's a
I don't
can of worms.
understand well enough. Once you get outside the blue ice, I get a little bit confused. I don't know what I can say there, except that I know on the small ice games, you get a lot more puck touches, even as a goaltender. Um,
Hmm.
like I can remember my son, he probably wouldn't want me telling the story, but here we go. One of his first games as a goaltender, and I can't remember the age. Let's call it 7, maybe 6. And they were rotating at the time, and he finally got this opportunity to be a goalie in a tournament. This was an age where every team could have a coach on the ice too, just to sort of direct
Yeah,
traffic or something. And it was my turn because he was in net, and I got to stand there and give him a little bit of help. And that's another tough thing about being a young goaltender, is not getting any coaching support like the forwards do when they come back
true.
to the bench. Long story there too. Anyway, all of a sudden there he is, and I can see the shoulders shaking, and I can see that he's probably crying, and he's not a happy boy. And that was as tough as a parrot. Now, it wasn't entirely related to this. It was hadn't eaten enough. He was very food sensitive at the time. But it was also the puck's at the other end of the ice, and I'm standing here all alone, 200 feet from what's going on, bored stiff.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm kind of in favor of the small ice stuff myself, but
I
each his
see
own.
lots of benefits, definitely. And Hockey Canada definitely is very, very happy with what they've
On
done
the
and with
ice and things
how
like
things
that.
have gone. Do you think there's ever been a time where maybe you made a decision, made a choice, and where you might have looked back even immediately or just in hindsight and thought to yourself, oh, maybe I went a little too hard there, or maybe even went a little too soft, or
Maybe too soft. I can't think of a particular occasion. I definitely err on the side of soft. I was
hmm.
my son's goaltending coach up until he hit U18. At what point that just wasn't an option anymore. Um, and for me, our relationship as father-son takes priority over everything else. I was not going to ever endanger that. And so I probably didn't push in some areas where I could have, but I actually think that was fine. And when there were some times I could see that maybe there'd been a little too much coaching or a little too much dad, I would just not go on the ice. There'd be days I wouldn't even go in the rink. I could just sort of sense he needed his time to work things out. Uh, I really believe, as much as I think it's great that we have goaltending coaches for kids at all levels, they also need a certain amount of time to just work things out on their own. I mean, they play the games without us on the ice,
Right?
with the exception of that one example I just gave you.
Yeah,
Um, and so they have to learn to work on their own out there. And the kids who get a little bit of goaltending coach, but not every day, all day, I actually think they're at a bit of an advantage in that respect. Unless, of course, that goalie coach just really gets it and really has a good feel. I had a feel for my kid because I know him better than anybody else.
absolutely.
But yeah, that was sort of how I approach things, and I think it's been a really, really good thing for both of us because we've still got an awesome relationship.
Yeah, it's great. And I know when I listen to you on your show and the way you describe things and even the way Kevin will touch on certain things and it sure seems like it. It seems like you guys like have yeah, you've been able to like set the right boundaries, for yourself and you've been able to I mean, I guess what I would say is like apply enough pressure but also know when to sort of step back a bit. It
Yeah.
sounds exactly like.
Pretty close to no pressure, to be honest.
Yeah.
And by the way, within the context of Matthew, who we're talking about, he's
Yeah.
Uncle Kevin. He's Uncle Kevin.
Okay. Yeah.
He's definitely part of the family. Definitely part of Team Matthew. No, almost no pressure, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I've always presented opportunities to him, and it's his choice if he wants to take them on or not take them on. Do you want to go to this camp? Do you want to go on the ice today? Do you want to do whatever? And that's about it.
Yeah.
I would never say, no, you need to do one more rep. No, you need to do this harder. Quite frankly, nobody pushes himself harder than this kid. He works so hard, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Probably too hard at times. And so no, I really haven't had to provide pressure. And yeah, I think I'm just really lucky that way, I guess. I don't know.
Well, obviously, it's something along the way that he's been it's been a big part for him. So it's something that he loves and it's something that he wants to do. And
100%.
then I guess that's why, when we look, he's been successful. Like he is applying what he needs to get to where he wants to be. And he's really he's becoming, I guess, the goaltender he wants to be. And I mean, he's with the Vancouver Giants right now, first full season, I guess,
Mhm.
as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So later birthday, so we don't have to talk about draft just yet. He's got a
Thank
whole
heavens,
another
because it's been a
year.
tough year.
I can only imagine what it's like. Um, so if we want to touch maybe even on that a little, and I know he did do a little stop in the tier two circuit out there as well. What was it like for you, and how did you know it was time to sort of step back and to sort of let go, if you want to even call it that?
Hmm. Interesting. I think the letting go was gradual.
Okay.
At the U18 level, it just wasn't an option. The team had their program, have their goalie coach, didn't want parents on the ice, no problem. I've always tried to provide them opportunities with other coaches.
Mhm.
And if I had one piece of advice for parents, to the extent that you can, don't get locked in with one goalie coach too much. You're going to have guys you like
Yeah,
better than others, or gals that you like better than others, and want to spend more time with them. But I really think it's a good idea to spend time with more coaches, because we all bring something different to the table. I could step on the ice with another goaltender, another coach, and see different things in his goalie's game than probably he sees, because he's just got his repertoire and his things that he works on, and vice versa. He's going to notice things in the goalies that I work with as well, that aren't priorities for me, but are definitely important things to work with. Or they have a different manner. I remember taking Maddie to um, three different goalie coaches in the span of about 1 week when he was quite young. And one was just super fun, go out there and have a grand time. The other one was kind of in the middle. He would laugh and hoot and holler between reps, and then he'd be pretty serious once the reps started. And then the other one was just all business all the time. That one's Eli Wilson. And and afterwards I asked Maddie, what did he like the best? And he actually liked something different from everyone. And he actually said, yeah, Eli's really serious, but I think I like it.
yeah,
But you have to develop those things. So by
sure.
seeing all these different coaches over time, I think I was always letting go, in the sense that it was never my program. I just sort of jump in there where I can. And I recognize that all these guys are smarter than I am and more experienced than I am. So, and even Matthew from a young age was more experienced at a lot of things than me. So I would take his direction on a lot of things. Everything we do on the ice, which is only in the summer these days, is very collaborative. And I love those times. Hey, have you thought of this? No, well, I do it this way for this reason. So I've been letting go all along, and I think that's been to his benefit. But you were asking, I think, maybe more in the context of the junior game when he was getting there. And that one, I've always felt that as a parent, we come to it, what do they say, rose-colored glasses or something. Like I recognize we probably see our kids differently than other people do. And
Hmm.
in my case, I actually think I was probably harder on him in terms of what I saw. I would see the flaws more than I would see
Okay.
the good. Maybe because I felt guilty as a parent or something. I don't know what it is, but
It's an easy
uh,
thing for a parent to do.
yeah, but I definitely wasn't the one just going around saying I think my kid's the greatest thing since sliced bread and he's
Right.
going to play in the NHL and here we go. In fact, his first experience in junior was a bit crazy. He got invited to a BCHL camp at age 12, um, mostly because the head coach had been his spring coach, brought him out for a couple captain skates. It actually went really well. And then he's like, well, why don't you come to main camp? So he did, and that was kind of a cool experience. But his first sort of real experience in a BCHL camp was at age 14, and I wasn't going to take him. I took him to the goalie coach that he spends a lot of time with on Vancouver Island, James Gartner, great guy. Um, and I just said, "Hey James, I saw you guys have this camp coming up. It's probably too young for Maddie now, but what do you think?"
Hmm.
I said, "No, you should bring him, and he will AP for us this year, and he's going to play a bit." Like, okay. I guess we're taking him to camp. And he didn't mean it in the sense that it's all predetermined and everything, but that was just
Right,
his
right.
confidence level in who Matthew was. And he went to the camp, and at the end of the camp, it had nothing. I mean, it wasn't James, the head coach and the assistant coach brought him in afterwards and said, "We want to sign you." So that was all, again, me just deferring to other people. At that point, I'm just a dad. I'm just standing in the stands, nervous and worried, and Just doing my thing like we all do.
And you said the word worry, which is I think is it's a fun thing sometimes. I think sometimes some goalie parents do get a little caught up in wearing the badge of honor of the nervousness and the anxiety that you feel. Have you always been able to put that aside? Have you been able to?
Nope.
No.
Nope, nope, nope.
It
It tends to, and I hope the pattern continues. It tends to alternate year to year. So he would be on his first year at an age level. We're 2-year groups here in BC.
hmm
The first year would be a little bit more of a struggle than the second year, so I would be really nervous. And
Okay.
usually by the second year, I knew he's good. The game should be all right. Um, you're nervous because you want it to be a good experience. You want the
Of
team to do
course.
well and everything. But for the most part, I could sit back and relax. Last year, playing junior here on the island, a total wagon of a team. I knew every game was going to be good. I didn't worry at all, except maybe when we hit overtime in some games.
Mm.
This year in the Western League, it's been a real struggle for sure. And so I'm pretty much a basket case this year. I'm hoping next year we'll be back to things are good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in a way you kind of have to, but it is nice. And again, back to the sort of the letting go thing, you do have to sort of make it available for yourself to have some space too. And
Mhm.
it seems anyway, like, and I get this goes to sort of why I did want to have this chat with you is that you've been able to really navigate this, fairly well from certainly from what I experienced listening to you and even
Thank
just
you.
all the extra stuff we've talked about today. So
Thank you.
um I I
I should
I
say, by the way, the nervousness is purely just wanting him to be happy.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
and like even there'll be games that I think go really well. His mom will say this, she never knows what he's going to be thinking. But it happens to me too that you think, it's actually played a pretty good game, and he'll just be really upset after the game. And that's just what you don't want.
Yeah,
Um,
I did this
want
wrong, I did that wrong. Overthinking a
hypercritical.
certain play.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the potential lies there for us all to do it. I know, when I'm out there on Tuesday nights with my buddies and I come across to make a save and I I don't either say track the rebound and it goes to somebody or even if I make a move and suddenly my pad flips forward, I'm like, God, what are you doing, you donkey? Like
Sure.
you, little things like that, or I was late to this, but he fanned on it, so it didn't go in, so no one noticed, but I still know it happened. You know,
Absolutely.
um, I think I don't want to say lucky, but I know I sort of I dodged a bullet a little bit. My son did not want to play goal from very early on. He told me, and so he's a forward, and we're just playing at the house league level, so there isn't too much pressure. But I am a coach, and I do love being out there. It's a lot of fun, and I do enjoy. I do struggle at times to get enough work in with our goalie on our team, but which goes back to I think what you even said earlier about just being able to have the training, but the amount that I've played and some of the time that I've spent on the ice with coaches, and then through work, the time I spend off ice with coaches and seeing how they do things and observing their camps. I still try to work and mix in the things that I can, but I know when I have 14 skaters out there too, and one other assistant coach beside myself, it's sometimes hard to break away. And then you just want to try to do as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a shame that there's just the two of you. It's unfortunate there couldn't be another person out there. I would say to any parent who's watching this, if you can get out there and volunteer and help out, please do.
hmm
You might not think that you've got all the experience of some of the coaches that you see, but there's still so much you can do. I helped out with the development program here in Nanaimo with the local minor hockey association for a
mm
little while. And one thing that we implemented was that if you're going to bring a goalie to our sessions, you need to bring one of your team coaches as well, please. And and so that they could just see what we're doing and have a couple of things that they knew they could do on the ice with the kids. It's not rocket science what we're doing out there.
No.
And as much as anything, often kids just need a little bit of direction. Like even when I go on the ice with some of the junior goalies I work with, they'll be starting practice just sort of chatting and staring at each other. And they just need that little, okay, let's get in the net and do some movement here, boys. Like
hmm
even having that for someone is a huge advantage. So yeah, if you can get involved, absolutely do, because there's so many ways parents can get involved. we just to try and emphasize that, one thing that InGoal does is run a program for associations that we piloted this year with the Oakville Minor Hockey Association, Oakville Rangers. And they wanted to give every goaltender in their association a subscription to InGoal as part of their education. Awesome. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
We just said, well, let's go one step further. And we effectively donated one more for one coach on every team as well, just to try and make that point.
Mm.
Any volunteer can learn a little bit about the position and help out the kids on the ice. So get out there, parents.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. It's an excellent thing. I've had in the couple of years that I've done it, I've had parents who really aren't hockey parents, so to speak, or they didn't grow up with it, who have asked, "Can I just come on the bench and just kind of see what you do?" And yeah, of
Awesome.
course.
Good for
Of
you.
course. When I got into it, I was sort of late taking my own team. Scheduling allowed me to take my own team rather than pairing up. So I hadn't pre-planned to have a lot of extra help with me. So I was relying on other parents on the team, which was always great. And then I ended up, yeah, having lots of help sort of by the end. And last year it was just me on the ice. So I made sure
Wow.
I had a good assistant. I will say it was 9 and 10 year olds.
Hmm.
And I do set I try my best anyway. I do try my best to set an expectation that there are no pucks when we're talking. There are no pucks when we are skating around warming up, and there are no pucks when we're lining up waiting for our turn to do what we're doing. The pucks all go to the front. And I did joke with one of the conveners. I said, come and watch my practice. I said, I'll have all the kids skating around and I'll be throwing pucks into the corners, just getting ready for a warm-up drill that we do with pucks, and watch my kids skate around the ice, and none of them will touch a puck until it's time, till I blow the whistle,
Hmm.
because they just understand that that's my. So at least for
That's
that, I
right.
think I was able to rank, herd the kittens, so to speak,
Sure.
and
Yeah, yeah.
keep them all in line.
I was happy to only ever be a goaltending coach. I got two kids to worry about. Every now and then I'll push a few pucks for the head coach, but it's much easier this way.
Oh, absolutely, and look, and you definitely enjoy it, and I think it seems like you've done a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope
Yeah.
so. Still learning every
Oh, I'll
day.
have Matthew on someday, and then we'll talk to him about. We'll see
Yeah,
how good of a
you should
job
do
he
that.
did in
Yeah,
his
you'd enjoy
eyes.
it, I know. Yeah.
So if we do move on, so let's focus a little bit even more on you now with your role at InGoal. You and Kevin, of course, the two-headed monster. What's going on there? What's exciting? I know everyone loves the pro reads and the things like that. Those are some of the best features, I think, where it's almost like having an NHL goalie or a pro goalie or a junior goalie be your goalie coach in that time when they can really break down the things that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. The pro reads are fantastic. They're so good at breaking down the game. I won't name the team, but there's a team in the NHL that won't let their goalies do pro reads because they actually use them to scout other goalies. They watch them themselves and they're learning things about what these other goalies do. Kevin's actually usually really careful with them when he asks a
Right.
question, whether it's on the a podcast interview or the pro reads. He'll say, "Look, if this is going too far, please don't share it. We want you to teach the young guys a little bit, but it's okay if there's a
Absolutely.
few state secrets."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's super exciting. I think one of the things that's most exciting for us is when the goalies themselves are so engaged in what we're doing. And now that we've been at this for 15 years or so, we're starting to bump into goalies who grew up with us. And it's
Yeah.
so cool. Now, Linus Allmark is an example. He didn't grow up with us, but I remember Kevin was doing a pro read session with him, and they're in a separate locker room in Vancouver after a practice. And that locker room was needed for a team that was coming into the rink. And the PR person knocks on the door and says, "Hey, we got to finish up here, guys. Team's coming in." And you'd think a busy NHL goalie might love that opportunity, but Linus is like, "No, no, we've got time. We got a few more to go through."
Mm.
He was enjoying the experience. Or this week's podcast coming out with Ivan Prosvetev of Colorado.
Yeah.
Kevin met up with him, and Ivan immediately said, "I thought I recognized your voice. I listen to the podcast all the time." So cool. And there've been so many
Yeah.
occasions like that now. So for us, super rewarding. Great to know that all these NHL goalies and their coaches are reading, watching, listening. So fun. What's new? More of the same, but just what can we do to get it in more goaltenders' hands? I mentioned Oakville piloted a program for an association to bring it to all their goaltenders as part of their education program. I think it's awesome that associations bring goalie coaches in to work with their goaltenders, but for a fraction of that budget, they can put InGoal in the hands of all of their kids. And that then allows whether it's the association or a coach to say to their kids, hey, have you watched this week's pro read? Let's talk about it.
Hmm.
What we do with Oakville is once a month we send an email out to all their goalies, and it's based around a theme. It's not the one that if you're on our email list, you get here's what's new on the site every week. But what Oakville gets once a month is, well, the first one was warm-ups. So we had a whole newsletter that was based around the warm-up. Here's an off-ice warm-up with Carey Price directing a bunch of kids. Why don't you try this one? Here's an on-ice warm-up with Thatcher Demko. Why don't you see what, if you're a coach, you want to see what you could do. If you're a goalie who wants to direct one of his coaches a little bit and say, hey, could we try this? And then a number of other things around the theme, all sort of a pro read. How did that warm-up help him? That kind of thing. So we try and help them with their coach education. Hopefully that will expand next year. And then we've just launched a program for goalie coaches to do the same thing with all of their students. So we got a number, we piloted it with GTI in Toronto. It
Hmm.
was actually their idea. They came to us and they kindly purchased a subscription for each of their kids. And we're doing the same thing, but with an expanded roster of coaches this year. And again, some of them will get that directed email that comes from their coach and from us with a little bit of content to help with their teaching as well. So I think that's the new thing. How can we just reach more kids? Because it's still we're still a bit of a niche and we want to grow it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody said to me one time, we know an awful lot about a very narrow, focused group
Yes.
amongst
Yeah.
them. And really it,
The other piece that
yeah.
I should have mentioned that I forgot is as of the last podcast, we've added in a feature for parents. So there's every podcast has a feature interview, a gear segment, and now it's got
Mhm.
a parent segment. And that arose because of where we bumped into each other online was one of the Facebook parent groups. And I just kept seeing the same question asked over and over by parents or questions. And
Yeah.
I would answer them as best I could. But I thought, why not bring this into the podcast? So last week, Kevin and I bandied around the question, which mask should I buy my son or daughter? They need a new one.
Hmm.
And spoiler, we didn't name a specific brand for a really good reason. Go listen to it. We're posting those on the website as well for all our members that they can just go and just listen to that segment alone and see a bit of a write-up about it as well. So we really want to expand in the coming season a lot more parent content because I know a lot of parents are
Yeah.
looking for information. It really I think it opened my eyes being on that parent group, how many people were looking for information. And
Sure.
so yeah, there's going to be a lot more parent stuff coming. We'll have maybe an announcement coming fairly soon. We'll see, but stay tuned.
Yeah. That is something that a lot of parents really do need because, unlike yourself who would have had experience with the game, if you don't, or even if you just weren't a goalie, you don't know what are these strings on the front of this pads? What the heck am I supposed to do with these?
What
You
leg does
know?
each pad go on?
Yeah, well, and then like we're not really wearing pads with straps anymore, but like, well, there's 14 holes in this strap. Which one am I supposed to put the pin in?
Well, for sure, for
You
sure. There's so
know?
much. Yeah. When I started the development program here, what day one of lessons, we brought all the parents into the dressing room. They said, we're going to be a little late getting on the ice today because you're all going to learn how this gear should be worn.
Yeah,
Obviously, every goalie wants to play with their setup to a degree, but there's some parameters we try and give everybody, and I think that's important. So maybe we can do a little bit more parent focused stuff on the site at some point.
yeah. I spend a little bit of time in the summers going to a few different goalie schools that I do some work with, mostly just for equipment. And I try to get as many parents in the room when I'm talking to the kids as are available, as are there.
Awesome. For sure. For sure.
And it's the smallest, tiniest things will start off a string of questions once I start and a lot of my time it's me with a pad on the floor
Yeah.
saying, so why we do this like this is because we want the pad to do this. And
Yeah.
if we do this with your foot, we can get this to, and the sort of the eye opening, the light bulbs that are going off, and it literally, it's a 5 to 10 minute chit chat that comes out of an innocuous question about a lace on the bottom of a pad or something like that. And then I suddenly just go into this, and then all these parents now are have that little nugget that they were maybe looking for. And I think sometimes that's almost as rewarding as educating the kids, because so
Oh,
many
for
of
sure.
them grow up and grow into it and already know what they want and know what they like, and things like that. But it's it can't be easy. I know for sure.
I
My
think the thing
father
we
didn't
have to,
have,
sorry.
I was gonna say, my father didn't really have much uh, uh, to go on when I started being a goalie, but I
No,
think the equipment was a little bit simpler at least then, and um, and I was able to sort of develop my own ways of liking it. But I know for some it's quite the task.
for sure. And I think we have to, like, what you're doing is fantastic at these camps, and kudos to you for doing that. But I think we also have to recognize that it's a small percentage of goalie parents that can afford to send their kids to some of these camps at
Absolutely,
500,
that's true.
600, $1,000 or more.
Yeah,
And good for you if you do. But if you can't, we've got a resource for less than $50 where you can learn all sorts of
yeah.
things about the game. Um, for all of us, it feels like a no-brainer to me
Hmm.
to spend less than the cost of a couple of sharpenings when you're out there spending two, three, $400 on a stick
Yeah,
that's likely to break. We're not going to
it's a
break
dollar
for
a
you.
week.
Yeah, we're going to be there all year, and would love to be able to present that to parents and help as many of them as we can.
So it's an excellent resource for goalies. It's an excellent and becoming an even more excellent resource for parents. It's a teaching tool. It's very affordable. Why are you not all on this right now?
If anybody has an answer, let me know because we want to get better. We want to reach
Yeah.
more people.
So maybe just let everybody know, where can we find you? Where can we get to you to access to get into In Goal? Where can we find your podcast as well? How can we find all those things that we are looking for?
Wow. Okay. Podcast. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to. It's called InGoal Radio. We started as InGoal Magazine, so it seemed like when we went to audio, we'd become InGoal Radio. So the InGoal Radio podcast. That's INGOAL, like who's playing in goal tonight. Um, And you can also find every podcast on our site. Our site is ingoalmag.com, as in Goal Magazine. You can just search in Google InGoal Magazine, it'll pop right up. And everything's right there. You can contact us through the site if you'd like. You could hit us up at info@ingoalmag.com. We're on social media. We're sort of everywhere. Not too hard to find, I don't think. And love to engage people. When parents write questions to us, hey guys, I heard you talking about this. What do you think about my daughter is XYZ about whatever situation? Happy to answer those questions.
Hmm.
It really, we're sort of working in a vacuum. You're in the online world. You're working at home and collaborating across Zoom like you and I are right now, and you never quite know how the content is falling on people as they watch it and listen
Yeah.
to it. So we love hearing from people. It really is rewarding.
I mean, this was outstanding. This was everything I would have hoped for when I first contacted you,
Thank you.
Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope we can help some people find you guys now, even more goalies, and we'll definitely be sending everyone your way whenever they're looking for stuff like this. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.